Welcome to episode 162 of On Record PR, where we dive deep into the strategies that matter most to law firm leaders. I'm Jennifer Simpson Carr. I am a co host and a vice president of strategic development at Fury Rubel Communications. And today I'm joined by our special guest, mental health professional, educator, speaker, and author of the book Resilience Renegade, Renee Branson. Welcome, Renee.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you for joining us again. For those of you listening who may not know, Renee was so gracious to join us last Tuesday morning, very early Pacific time, as she was volunteering um, to support the survivors of the LA wildfires. So, Renee, I know the recording didn't take, and you were so gracious when we had to break the news to you, but we're so grateful that you came back.
Oh, well, I wouldn't miss it. And believe me, that there's such thing as blessing in disguises. So I don't know that I was exactly fully awake or mentally present in the midst of everything last week. So I'm actually delighted to be back here, more well rested.
Good. Well, thank you. So it's Monday, January 27th. It's felt like quite the start to 2025. There's been a lot happening in the legal industry space, a lot of mergers and combinations that have come into effect. So the market's changing. And we're exactly 1 week after, in the United States, the US presidential inauguration. So there's a lot of things 3 weeks into a new year that people are dealing with as humans. Anyone who has spent time online on social media is probably already feeling inundated with updates and with almost minute by minute changes. So I just want to start first by recognizing that there are people showing up for work, whether it's at their laptop at home or commuting to the office or traveling, who may be dealing today with fears and anxiety that didn't exist, a week and a day ago. So I just want to start by asking you, for those living in a more heightened state of anxiety or fear, whether it's real or perceived, what kind of impact is that having on them day to day as they're showing up in their lives and as professionals?
Great question. Anytime we have periods of uncertainty, of heightened anxiety and concern, whether that's coming from something happening in our personal lives, something that's happening in our professional lives, or in the case that you're talking about, something that's happening at this, cultural, governmental, national level, when we are uncertain and uncertainty triggers fears, we automatically go into a heightened state of vigilance. We're feeling some levels of fight or flight or even freeze, right? I don't know what to do, so I'm just gonna put the covers over my head, or I'm having a really difficult time in engaging. And any time that that happens, the very first thing that we need to do about it is just to acknowledge the reality of it, right? This is how I'm feeling, not trying to shame ourselves about it or deny it or push it away. And the same goes if we are leading people who are experiencing those things. Acknowledge the reality, address the situation openly and honestly. I know that recent events might be affecting you both personally and professionally. Let's create some space for that, whether that's time to discuss it with colleagues formally or informally, but finding some space for that. So just acknowledging the reality of it then helps to ground ourselves in the present. Like, okay, we're not expending a lot of energy just trying to deny the truth of the situation.
Mm. That's really helpful advice because part of what I was thinking about while you were speaking is there may be people, and there are, who are showing up today and don't feel different. And so I think just taking a moment, as you said, to acknowledge that there are potentially individuals or groups of people who may be feeling very different than they did even a week ago is a really foundational place to start.
Absolutely. Believe people. Believe people when they say how they are feeling, because they are experiencing things and seeing things from their own lived experience that we can have no idea, right, what that means. When you and I talked last week, I shared this metaphor that I think is applicable. I was seeing in Pasadena on streets where the fire did not reach. Fire was a half a mile away, and there were these big piles on the side of the road that were debris fields, like where people had cleaned up because of the windstorms, all the fallen branches and leaves, and of course lined up along the streets waiting for pickup. And in my brain, I thought this is a sign of recovery and people, kind of cleaning things up. But I noticed that everyone around me whose lived experience was this fire, they were terrified by these mounds of debris because they knew that those were absolutely prime to combust. So what I saw as a sign of maybe cleanup, they saw as a sign of imminent threat and danger,
Mm.
because their lived experience told them something much more accurate than my experience, which was not that lived experience, right? So when someone says that's dangerous, that's dangerous to me, believe them.
Mhm. Yeah, that's such a great analogy. So, what I'm hearing is that there are going to be, and there are people who, with different lived experience, who may be in groups different than we are, right? So they don't share the same past, they don't share the same experiences. What unique stressors do you find that marginalized groups face, where people who may be in a situation where they are in a position of privilege, or have not lived in those experiences, would maybe not understand or realize that would even be uh, part of fear or anxiety?
Yeah. So part of it is that they many times they're coming into work feeling very unsafe about the outside world that they're experiencing, sometimes very literally unsafe, not just psychologically unsafe. But also they're coming into work and now they're questioning, what is my safety here?
Mm.
Even if by all, by all past evidence, you have created an environment on your teams and in your firms that does promote psychological safety, that does promote a sense of equity and fairness. Even then, people are still coming in saying, is it still true? Right? This is when the rubber meets the road. Was it all vaporware? Was it all talk? Or was it true? And we're seeing all around us examples of corporations that proclaimed, here are our values, whether it's around DEI, or other initiatives saying, actually, no, we're going to roll those back. So in the back of people's minds, it's very logical, right? It's not paranoid, it's logical that they would say, is that, how do we stand now? Am I truly valued in the way that I was told I was valued? And to, as leaders, if we can expect and accept that that is going to be how some people come in, I say the number one thing that it's sometimes hard to say the number one thing, but one of the top things that a leader can do is stay congruent with the values that you stated. You've got to stay congruent to that, and to really lean into your integrity. And that in and of itself creates safety. And it's okay if you don't have all of the right answers. It's okay if you're not really sure what tomorrow is going to bring, but you can assure people that what I said is true, what we claim our values to be are our values. And we're going to continue to live that out in our behaviors and our actions. And that's when people can let their shoulders drop a little bit take a deeper breath to say, okay, at least here in this space right now today, um, I'm okay in
Mhm.
this moment.
So you're talking a lot about psychological safety. What are some other ways that leaders of law firms or any business can create a feeling of that psychological safety so that when someone does walk into the office or, working from their homes, that they feel that, as you said, their shoulders drop and they can take a deep breath and feel like themselves in that environment?
Yeah. So, in addition to that, to acknowledging the reality, right? Not denying the reality that people see right in front of them, and staying congruent with with values. A third thing is transparency, being open in communication, being honest when if the situation is, I'm not sure how this is going to impact us in the future or XYZ, or I'm not sure how, acknowledging that. And that takes some vulnerability, especially as leaders, right? When we want to, especially in a time of crisis, maintain a sense of control and strength.
Mm.
And so we think, well, I can't say I don't know. But in reality, when we say, I'm not sure yet, but we're going to find out together, or I'm not sure yet, but here's how I'm going to make sure that we stay safe, protected, you're still can continue to be worthy and valued. What that shows is that builds trust and psychological safety, because it tells someone this person's being honest with me, and we'll figure it out together. When we see the world, or when people experience the world as kind of in crisis and burning all around them, and someone says everything's fine, it's going to be okay, I've got it, don't worry, what's the first thing we do? We worry.
Mhm.
Right? Because I'm like, do you not see what I'm seeing? What do you mean, don't worry?
Yeah.
But when we can say, you know what, I don't have all the answers, we're going to figure it out together. It's like, okay, they acknowledge, they're assessing the situation appropriately.
That's really helpful, and I know personally I lose trust. We've had a couple situations in our state, and I'm based in New Jersey, where we heard, "We don't know what this is, but you're okay." And those two things to me couldn't necessarily be true. So I think being rooted in integrity and transparency is so important. Renee, we're going to pause here for a message from our sponsor, and then we'll be back in just a minute.
Great.
This episode is brought to you by Furia Ruble Communications, a public relations and marketing agency serving law firms and businesses worldwide. With an expert team positioned throughout the U.S. and supported by an international faculty, Furia Ruble enhances our clients' brands through integrated communications by providing expert guidance in crisis management and high-profile litigation, protecting brand and reputation, and supporting internal marketing teams. To learn more, visit furiaruble.com.
Renee, we're back from our sponsor message, and we're talking a lot about how leaders, particularly in law firms, can help support their teams and individuals through times of raised fear, anxiety, uncertainty. So, law firms in particular are high stakes, high pressure environments in most cases. I'm just wondering how you advise law firm leaders who do have to support teams in these situations to also lead with empathy and understanding that this might be a time unlike others, any type of crisis or fear that they're going through.
I think anytime a leader is trying to lead people through crisis, they also have to acknowledge and care for the experience as they're experiencing it. Whether they are in a group that is being that is at risk or is being singled out, it still has there's, there's vicarious trauma all around us right now. And so acknowledging that in ourselves, and not only taking care of ourselves, but taking care of ourselves out loud, right? Being really intentional and open about, hey, I need to step away from the desk for a bit. I'm feeling, you know, I'm feeling a bit brain foggy right now, or I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm going to take a walk around the block, or I'm going to go, grab, a cup of tea, whatever that might be. These little things where we talk about it helps to normalize the way that we can take care of ourselves. And when our teams see leaders do that, it provides permission for them to also take care of themselves and take care of themselves in small incremental periods of time throughout the day. So it doesn't mean necessarily I've got to take a whole day off, although there might be times when you're going to have people say, I'm really struggling with today. I might, I need to make some arrangements for today for a myriad of reasons, right? And to be open to that. But even taking these incremental times throughout the day to take care of ourselves helps to bolster our resolve and our resilience throughout the day.
It sounds like the theme throughout this is lead by example, right?
Yeah.
Show up like you did yesterday as a leader, treat your people like you did yesterday as a leader, demonstrate that you're taking care of yourself. I think it's such a great reminder that our leaders are human too. And so
Hmm.
they're expected to be strong, they're expected to show up, but they also need to take care of themselves. What resources can leaders provide during these times to help their individuals through these times of fear and anxiety?
Yeah. So I would say to kind of the easiest first thing to do is to remind people of the resources that are already there and readily available to them, whether that is, whether you have an EAP at your firm, or LAP, any kind of program that you already have in place. Remind people of that. Now you might say they know they've got that. It's in their benefits package. And when people have high anxiety and are under an immense amount of stress, we're not always thinking of the resources there, right? Because we are in a fight or flight or freeze mode. So reminding people, having that readily available and visible. If you do have the ability to bring someone into your firm for a day, for a few days, having drop in sessions, different than counseling sessions, but to say, if you need a 20-minute drop in, debrief or check in with a mental health professional, or just someone to kind of talk through some things, what you can provide that. So finding those things that are already easily readily available, I would say also, and ideally this is something that firms already have at hand, but if not, it's never too late, is to have a resource guide, right? What are your resources specifically in your community? One of the things I've been thinking about is right now that I've been kind of pushing out to organizations that I work with and to firms, and maybe law firms need this less than other organizations, is that knowing your rights around dealing with ICE or Border Patrol, right? That eases people's anxiety around what happens if that is, if in my kid's school ICE shows up, or at my home because maybe I employ someone, whatever it might be. If providing someone a resource with just a handout that says, here are what my rights are. Okay, now I know what to do. Arming people with information is always a way to ease anxieties, not eliminate it, but ease it. So those are, finding those local resources, gathering those up to be able to provide to people, so helpful.
That's such a great reminder. I know that in these times when laws are changing, when executive orders are being signed, the law firms are so good at sending out communication to clients. And it is also a responsibility to help support your employees, your
Yeah.
professional staff, your attorneys. I know that something that you mentioned has been on my mind in our school district over the weekend, sent an email kind of outlining uh, certain facts, and it gave me a sense of relief
Mhm.
just in our school district. So I can imagine that having that available as things change is incredibly helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I would say, this just reminded me of this, being sensitive to, if when you are having conversation with someone, let's say, who may or may not have people in their lives who are undocumented, it might be kind of a natural thing for us to want to say, like, how are you doing? Do you know anyone, or do you have any of your family members who are undocumented? What can I do to support you? On the surface, that sounds really lovely, right? You're offering help. That can be a really triggering and dangerous question, right? To know, never ask someone, because you don't want to know anything that you might be accidentally or be asked to reveal, and we don't want to put anyone in a position where they need to reveal that information. So generally, especially when dealing with that, kind of generalities are better, and not asking those really specific direct questions about status. And that also goes for, for folks who are in the, LGBTQ community or trans community, or, you know asking really specific questions is something that might, even when you're coming from a good and healthy place, might heighten a sense of danger, because those can be tricky questions if that
Mhm.
information is in hands that aren't safe.
Yeah, that's great advice. I know that when people are feeling like they want to help, sometimes that help can turn into something that adds to anxiety. So
Yeah,
that's been a good
unintentionally, but yeah.
of course, and that's been a
Yeah.
good reminder from our conversation that didn't record. I've taken several things, and that's one of them is really being very thoughtful about questions that we're asking people who could be living through a heightened sense of fear at this time. So I want to thank you so much for coming back again this week. And I want to thank our listeners for tuning in today. If you've enjoyed the episode, please consider leaving a review on iTunes. We welcome your podcast ideas for topics at onrecordpodcast@onrecordpr.com. Renee, thank you again. You've been so generous with your time and your
Oh,
insights.
thank you.
And if anyone would like to get in touch with you after they listen to the episode, where can they find you?
So I'm easy to find. My website is just reneebranson.com. So can't get, it's just my name. And you can email me at rb@reneebranson.com.
Excellent. So we will link both of those places in the show notes. Thank you again. And to our listeners, we'll see you next week.
On Record PR is produced by Jennifer Simpson Carr and Matt Henderson, with support from the team at Ruble Communications. This episode is edited by Isabel Horan and Christian Yamula. Visit www.onrecordpr.com for resources and more information.